Hi everyone, my name is Pooja Talapatra and welcome back to my channel. This is where I help you design a life that you absolutely love. And today we're talking about a really fantastic skill that you have to master. It's communication. So when I was young, I was quite an introvert, and then at the age of 18, I had to move out of my home and into a hostel for my college. And that's when I realized that communication is so critical to make your life easier and happier and probably get the best of what you can make out of life. You will in time realize that communication skills probably triumph over most other talents. Whether you want to ace job interviews, build stronger relationships, or become a better leader, your way of expression is critical. Most people think that communication is only about talking, but it's not. It's about a meaningful conversation between two people or between you and an audience. So the whole premise to the video and your talent of communication is the fact that another human being is involved in the process. And today we're going to explore 10 ways to amp up your communication skills and make yourself better. Of course, it takes a lot of time and effort and practice to get going on it, but at least if you know what are the ways to do it, they'll become your stepping stones to make you better in the future. The last one that I will share is a very crucial tip, and it sort of binds together the first 9. So make sure that you stay till the end. A small message before we get into the 10 tips. If you are enjoying my videos, do subscribe for a new lesson every Sunday. The first thing to understand is active listening. Active listening means that you are truly interested in what the other person is saying. You really understand what the person is trying to get through to you or is trying to imply. That's when you make sure that you don't have your thoughts running in your mind so that you get distracted. Don't try to immediately give a response to what the person is saying. Hear the person out, then form an opinion basis the inputs that the other person has given you. In case it's an offensive statement or something that has made you really angry, don't react immediately. Ask clarifying questions in which you say that, what do you mean by that? Or could you explain it again? Or you could say, I did not understand what you're trying to imply. Could you please elaborate again? So that means you are not, if the person is being offensive, you are not doing the same with him or her. You want to clarify and you want to imply that, oh, could you explain your offensive stance again? So when you ask somebody to explain something, they will in turn calm down and give you a more collaborative approach in their communication as well. So essentially this tip means that you keep your own thoughts aside and you really understand what the other person is saying. The whole idea is to make sure that both parties are heard and a meaningful, continuous conversation can take place. The second pointer to remember is that you need to be precise and to the point. Whether you're in office or somewhere professional, making sure that you have that one message that you want to give, that's very critical, because if you want to keep on rambling, people's attention spans are very small and they really anticipate the main one point that you want to make in that 2-3 statements that you want to say. Of course, when you're having fun with friends, that's completely different. Like we don't usually have a point to make when we are with friends, but of course regularly in daily life, even when you're talking to your family members, etc., you would have some point to make, right? Just a very simple example is, suppose you're traveling say to a cold place like Delhi, and you say to your family member, hey, let's make sure that we pack winter clothes because Delhi is very cold at this time. I saw the news in the morning, it says it's currently 6 degrees. So you've not only said what you want to do, and you substantiated with a logic and data. So essentially when you make a point, you make sure that you have a top line statement that you say, and then you have your sub points and eventually a data point or something to back it up. So Chris, so if I had to put down all of my rambling in this one point, is just be precise, be concise, use as less statements as possible, and always try and back it with the data. The third point is that you have to develop emotional intelligence, which is your EQ, emotional quotient, and empathy when you're having a conversation. So context is very important when you're having a conversation. You have to acknowledge the state of mind that the person in front of you is. Suppose somebody's cat has passed away or a pet has passed away. You know the person is upset. You don't go and ask that person to return your money at that point of time maybe. You have to pass on your condolences and then take it up later. So you need to understand the situation, the surroundings before you initiate a certain conversation. Say in an office party where everybody is having fun, don't try to bring up something that will say bring down the mood of everybody. Don't share a sad story of your life in a party where everybody is happy. So try and read the room, read the people in front of you, and then start a conversation. So the best way to do this is try and step into somebody else's shoes. When you understand their thought process, emotions, and what they might be going through, the communication becomes 10 times more effective. An example would be if somebody is having a hard time in office and they share their story with you. So instead of saying things like, oh, I have been through the same, or everybody goes through that, it's nothing different, you start by saying, I understand what you're going through. I'm sure it would be frustrating. However, and then you continue with your advice. So that means you've acknowledged what that person is feeling, which is super critical. The fourth pointer to consider when it comes to communication is that you have to understand who you're talking to. Who's the audience that you are referring to, you're talking to, communicating to. So the way you speak to your friends, your parents, your manager, your subordinates, etc., everything has to be really different. Someone could want a communication which is to the point, which is probably a manager. He would probably not want you to talk in a very friendly manner or share a lot of your personal details. So that will be different. The way you talk to your parents will be different, and the way you talk to your spouse, friends, etc., or even the kirana store owner would be different, right? So make sure the way you speak, essentially the words that you use, the tone, the tonality of your conversation is different for everybody. So over time you will realize who prefers what. Of course, we grow up with a family, so we know how our family interacts with each other and the sort of accepted way to speak to them. But over time you will realize how your friends like it, your spouse, etc., etc. So make sure that you understand who you're talking to and then deliver accordingly. You might think that you have only one personality and you will say, oh, this is how I am. I mean, it's great to take a stand for yourself, but it does not work well in all situations. So when you speak the language who you're talking to, you really get their attention, and that is what you want eventually. So the fifth point is non-verbal communication. Yeah, so that's the point I wanted to make. Essentially, the way you use your hands, your body, your posture, the way you smile, that really matters. If you are standing up to give a presentation, you need to be straight and you need to smile. You need to have direct eye contact with folks in the meeting room, and that shows that you're super confident about what you're presenting. So if you're avoiding eye contact, if you're really nervous, your voice is shaking, that means that you've not prepared well, or you're just floundering and you're not at all confident. So your body language really makes a difference. So for example, if you are sitting at a table and you're speaking with your hands below your chin like this and you've crouched forward, it means that you're not mature enough and you're behaving in a childish manner. Similarly, if you folded your arms across your chest like this, it means you're slightly defensive. So while all of this will not be acknowledged out in the open, subconsciously people around you would think like that, and over time that is the sort of impression that they will get about you. So make sure that your non-verbal cues, anything other than what you're saying, is also aligned to the message that you want to put across. The sixth thing is very interesting. It's storytelling. All of us as children used to love stories, the ones that our grandmothers would tell us, and we still remember those, which essentially proves that storytelling is a very powerful way of having a conversation with somebody. And all of us have life lessons, all of us have small experiences. We can write as small stories. So essentially my advice would be that think of all the stories, the experience that you have gone through, put them across in say maximum 4 or 5 lines, and then fine tune them over time. And in any appropriate conversation you can bring up a story, and people will actually remember that story along with what you wanted to say, and eventually they will remember you in association with it. So storytelling is extremely powerful. Of course, when we give an office presentation, storytelling is evolved from data points, but in regular conversations it's more about how you package your experiences. So if you attend a lot of stand-up comedies and you hear stand-up comedians, you realize that the joke has a premise and a build-up and an anticipation and eventually a punchline, right? When you write your story, make sure that it also follows that sort of pattern, and eventually you'll get better with time. But this is a really effective method. Tip 7 is avoid aggression at all costs. We've all heard folks telling us that action matters more than words. It does, but words also matter. Do not get into active arguments. Do not get into an aggressive mode. You can be assertive. You can always put out your point, which is absolutely the right thing to do. But do not get into an argumentative mode. So for example, if someone says something that you do not agree with, you can always say phrases like, I hear you, however, this is what I think. Or you can say, I get your perspective, that's understandable. However, this is an alternative view that I think may also be true. So which means that you are saying to them explicitly that I've heard you, I've understood your perspective, but this is an alternative to what you're saying, and maybe you could also consider the same. At the end of it, we may agree to disagree, but this is also my thought. So not everything is a I win, you lose, or vice versa. And that's not how the world works anyway. Everything has a bit of grey and nothing is black and white. So that's exactly how you should work around it. The next method of getting more meaningful conversations in your life is to ask questions. A lot of the times we judge people when they say something without trying to understand the deeper angle of it. If say somebody makes a comment which we do not agree with, or somebody is judging somebody else, we do not know the deeper perspectives, we do not know the context to it. So ask questions. Ask, oh, why do you say it? What do you think about it? So as soon as you ask more questions, you realize that people open up and they'll tell you more of their experience. Sometimes they will just give their judgment or one blatant remark which will sound very insensitive, but once you start asking them questions and you get to know the background of it better, the conversation immediately is great. So for example, if I were to give you any opinions, any thoughts on something, the follow-up question would be, hey, what do you think of it? What are your thoughts on it? So I don't straight away ask you, okay, did you like it, yes or no? So that means in a yes or no, you will form one judgment about it. But if I ask you, did you like it? What did you like it? What did you not like it? So that brings a two-way sort of conversation traffic. So the bottom line is that ask questions. The penultimate pointer is that the tone of your voice really matters. I'm sure all of us have heard somebody or the other tell us I love you. But the same thing if somebody says, oh, I hate you so much. That's so nice and sweet and polite, but they're saying I hate you so much. So you don't mind as much as somebody who says, oh, I hate you so much. So that's really aggressive, and the tone really changes and matters a lot. So a lot of people, without filtering the message in it, really takes offense or tries to infer something from the tone itself, which is understandable. All of us are human. So the tone of the conversation really matters. Could you please do this? Versus, could you please do this right away? So the tone really, the statement is the same, but the tone really makes a difference. So make sure that you sometimes focus on your tone, your voice modulation, when to sound excited, when to sound happy, sad, etc. So the tone of your voice really matters. So sometimes for some people, how you say it matters more than what you say. So that sort of it is really dependent on the tone of your conversation. The last tip, and I feel is the most crucial tip, because this is what will help you put everything into practice. The last tip is that please reflect and give yourself feedback. So there are 3 ways to do it essentially. The first one is that you, at the end of the day, is that you sit down with yourself, try and remember the conversations that you've had during the day, and write down what you could have done better, how you could have responded better. So that means from the next time, if you have a similar conversation with somebody, you would know how to respond better. The second way is that you have a conversation. Suppose you have a certain opinion and you want to share it with somebody. Share the same opinion, the same thoughts with different people. Share it with your spouse, your siblings, your parents, your friends, etc. and see how all of them sort of react to it. And each conversation will be different. So that's where you know how every conversation would flow. So you would have a practice. So you know that, okay, if I say X statement, I will have another, say 5 kind of responses, and then another 10 sort of responses that I can give at my end. So essentially you now know that what sort of a conversation flow will happen for that particular statement or a thought. So you would have a wide variety of perspectives that you can now think of for the same thing in the future. The third and the last one, I think, is the best out of the 3, but it takes the most effort. Record yourself speaking in front of a mirror, or just record yourself with a camera, or just look at yourself in the mirror and talk to yourself. That will give you immense confidence. So if you speak to yourself through a camera, you are not exactly looking at yourself, but at a later time you can sort of evaluate how you have spoken, what you have spoken, your body language, how you use your hands, your fingers to express yourself, or your facial expressions. If you're looking at a mirror, you can give yourself feedback real time. However, that can be slightly more nerve-wracking. So the first time you look at yourself and speak, you will really be conscious, but with time and practice, it will go away. But the greatest thing to happen is that it will be a very real-time feedback that you will be giving yourself. So those are the 3 ways that you can give yourself feedback and improve over time. So I think we've covered a lot today. I've shared 10 ways that you can improve your communication. I would suggest stop watching the video, go practice it, find out what you have to sort of cover up from this communication class and put it right into action. Thank you and see you next week.